Hey, I'm Scott,
And I'm Chris.
and this is Doxologic, where we help you think with your Bible.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Doxologic, and this being a bonus episode of Doxologic. Really excited to get into some good material, but first let me just say hello to Scott.
Hi, Chris.
What's up, my brother? How are you doing?
It's great to be with you again, as
And I'm
always.
also with another brother, another pastor, Pastor Stu, the European. The Englishman. I had to get it out there quickly.
No.
I don't
Stu,
even.
why is that so important?
Well, we could talk about Brexit for one thing, but no, I gotta claim my stake that I'm English, not European.
Scott, several weeks ago, talking about something related to alcohol on a mailbag question, mentioned Stu as a European, and I came
Yes,
to your
you
aid.
did,
I did,
thankfully.
thank you. I said, I'm
That's
pretty
why we
sure he's
removed you from
English.
the next Q&A.
He's English, folks. But, Stu, you are here and we're here to talk about our Doxa Church, our disciple-making workshop that's coming up. And there's a lot to unfold about that. It's our first time doing it. And so we want to highlight this as an important event for our church coming up in the fall. When is it? And get us kicked off with just like why you came to, maybe actually how you came to see this as a needed thing.
Yeah, so it's coming up on October 7th and 8th. It's a Friday evening and Saturday all day. And the why is we, as small group leaders, or I gather the small group leaders twice a year, and we wanted to be able to drive in at the importance of to make disciples. We need to have the gospel at the center of that and need to be on the same page. With understanding what gospel fluency looks like in order to make disciples. And we did a series just a couple months ago after Easter on what the gospel is, and really being able to expand that to be able to go, okay, if we're truly going to make disciples, then we need to make sure that we don't just intellectually know what the gospel is, but it's actually driven to our hearts and actually forms and shapes how we live as Christians. And so we as an adult ministry team went through a book called Gospel Fluency, and then thinking between that as well as the training and going, man, what happens if this wasn't just small group leaders that we were talking through this and equipping our leaders on this? So Pastor Isaac and I started talking as him and I work closely together of what discipleship looks like in the adult ministry.
And he oversees our biblical counseling.
Yeah, that's right. And then we started thinking beyond that and going, well, what about student small groups? And what about those that teach within Doxa Kids? And what about our prayer team? And all these different ministry areas that then led us to have a conversation with you. And then things expanded and we invited people in. And what happens if we actually did a training and equipping all the leaders across Doxa with the same intent and purpose, and going, what happens if we're all on, not that we're not on the same page, but if we're just running along the same track with the same tools, and we're speaking the same language. And that's what led us to the place, actually creating the disciple-making workshop that we're going to have in October.
Yeah, and it's really, it was sweet to watch it pretty naturally unfold from an initial concept for the small group leaders in the fall, which is one of the 2 training times you do, to the conversations like that is a lot bigger than only what small groups need. It's
right.
Something that our whole church needs. And so we are, recruiting a lot of leaders, to your point about who you just listed off. And then beyond that, we want to make it available to as many people as would be interested in coming, because it isn't just for a small group leader to know and understand how sweet it is, having led a small group for 7 years, when you have got a moment that needs pastoral care, that just needs, it's a ministry moment in your small group, and someone else in the group is also prepared.
Yeah.
Someone else has received either some training or has at least the maturity and the theological understanding to really minister. And it's not just all eyes on you, small group leader.
Right.
Multiple people in the group being able to do that is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, because if we look at Ephesians 4, it says equip the saints. It doesn't say only equip these group of people for the work of the ministry. So no, if you're a saint, we want to equip everyone. And so this this workshop is an opportunity maybe specifically for the current leaders that we have right now, but not limited. If someone is interested in leadership, or they over the next couple of months they're going to step into a leadership role, then we want to start with our leaders, and so that it can filter out from that space.
And it's such an accessible kind of centerpiece in the gospel, obviously, that I can see the idea in it of itself, having started in a small select group and then realizing this is the foundation of how any disciple is made in any different context. So leaders can be involved, but now you're opening it up to everybody else. I think of Ephesians 4. I also think of Ephesians 2. How are people going to get ready for these good works that God's prepared beforehand that they might walk in them without a deep understanding of the gospel and how it fleshes out in your own life?
Yeah.
How do you use the gospel to grow as a believer, and then how do you get the gospel into others in a way that they might grow and mature into a greater Christ-likeness from one degree of glory to the next?
Yeah, 100%.
Now, Stu, you were pretty adamant about this not just being a conference but a workshop. Tease that those two words out and why we want this to be a workshop.
Yeah, and not that conferences are bad,
Sure.
but a lot of times when I've experienced them, I'm sitting there and I'm consuming content, and the content can be really good, but we don't want this to be something that someone just sits there and they're listening to a whole bunch of things, but they're actually listening and also practicing at the same time. So that's why I chose the words workshop, because it gives that idea that it's going to be heavily interactive, and a lot of discussion questions and activities around the table around like-minded people. Like, this is for our church. It's not like a conference is typically, or like, let's try and bring people from the outside in and let's try and grab people from different churches in the area. But no, this is a workshop, a building up of the saints within inside of Doxa. And so, again, that heavily piece on being interactive, discussion roundtables and questions and activities, and not just being able to listen to something and then to be able to maybe just walk away from that. But no, actually, let's listen and put into practice, and so that you can continue to move on from that weekend and continue to put into practice in the different ministry areas that people are involved in.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the worship room very much transformed.
Right.
We're renting lots of circular tables for this reason, that you'll be sitting at those tables. Yes, there will be some sessions. We'll talk about some of the content that's coming up, but it really is going to be driven to now get together. Many of you are leaders, not everybody, but many of you are leaders and you chose to be here. And so now turn in to the table and flesh this out, talk this through. It's going to be really neat to see. What we hope will be about 300 people. That's our capacity given what we're doing to the room. It's just going to be awesome, actually, to see that transformed and do that. Well, when it comes to what you're hoping people, Stu, will kind of walk away with maybe after the I almost said conference. After all that explanation, after the workshop, that is not a conference. When someone's hearing this and they're just considering it, they heard your announcement maybe, which happened to be just 2 days ago, but whenever folks are listening to this recently, you made the announcement. They're considering it. What would be your pitch to someone who's not in a formal leadership capacity, just still say you still would benefit greatly from this?
Yeah, well, the mission of the church for us, we say, is to glorify God by making disciples. And that's not just limited to Doxa, that's every church, is that we are called to make disciples. We're to be disciple makers. But that word discipleship, the disciple making is taken on so many different forms. Even when we say the gospel, you may go to another church and they may say the gospel differently and water it down, or whatever it may be. They weaken it, and so there's so much. Disciple can be such a buzzword, or someone just grabs a hold of it, but it can lack meaning. And so for us to be so purposeful to go, hey, we're going to biblically equip you in how to make disciples. That is the mission for everyone. That's not limited to a pastor, elder, someone that works at a church, or someone in a leadership position. It's like, no, we're all called and told to be a part of that work that God wants to work in and through us. And so whether someone is in a leadership position or not, or desires that, it's the work of all of us. To be a Christian is to be a disciple maker. And so this is an opportunity collectively together as a whole church that we can come together and take Ephesians 4 seriously, and other passages, Matthew 28, like the typical well-known ones, to go, actually, we're going to equip you and give you the tools to be able to do so. And so when I even think of like, I'm a Christian and I was saved through the gospel onto Jesus Christ, but does that enable or help me know how to go share the gospel with someone else? Or when I'm in a relationship, friendship, in a conversation with a brother, and I need to call them to Jesus through the gospel, do I just instantly know how to do that? Definitely the Spirit can work through that in that moment, but often of times we need the tools and the equipping of the church, the local church, to come alongside and help us in order to be able to do in those different situations. And so we take our mission seriously, and so if that's the case, then we need to be equipping. And this is just one opportunity. It's not the only opportunity. Sure. It's not the only way that we do it, quite clearly, as people know our church. But it is a way that we can get everyone together at the same time. And so whether someone is in a position or not, the fact that you can be equipped with some tools in how to make disciples, then that should be an encouragement to come along and participate in that weekend.
Yeah, it's very good, man. Appreciate you fleshing that out. I think that book, Gospel Fluency, have you picked that up yet?
Yeah.
Ever that? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty. Jeff Vanderstelt, if I said that correctly.
Yeah,
several years ago, right?
Yes.
He's up in Washington?
Yes.
Right?
Not
okay.
anymore, but yes. He may still live there. He was at a church in Washington. Now he's with the parachurch.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. But this Gospel Fluency book, as our adult ministries team of, it was 6 at the time, went through that. It was very revealing, the way in which we... at any point in the day can deviate from the gospel, deviate from grace, slip back into a works-based mindset, or just frankly be unbelieving still in a number of ways. And we need to be trained to discern. And what I like about how this has become an entire church, across our church's ministries, is that as I've grown in counseling, I've become a different type of listener. And it requires that you would do the work in your own heart to be able to also hear what people are saying. And when you've got a cue from someone that there's just frankly unbelief in their heart,
right.
and there's just frankly a fear going on there. There is a sin that they aren't ready yet, or maybe even frankly cognizant of, that is a sin issue, and you're trying to learn how to listen so that you can counsel them using these tools, using the gospel, so that it gets in you all the more, so that it gets out of you as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and just even for myself, like there's areas in my life, and someone could look at all of us, three sitting around the table, and go, well, your pastors, like surely like you're at, this level if they're through a mind frame, a frame that they're thinking through. But no, we're brothers. We need the gospel just as much as anyone else. Like, and that's why I'm super thankful that each week, whether it's one of you teaching, predominantly you, Scott, the gospel's always coming out in the messages, because it isn't just for the unbeliever. I think of Romans 1:16, where it's the power unto salvation, and my sanctification, my transformation, being conformed to the image of Christ, is done through the gospel. And so if the gospel's not being preached to me regularly and spoken to me in the daily, everyday life of being in relationships with people, I'm going to become like forgetful of it. Mm-hmm. And that's where unbelief really can settle in. And when that is exposed, the lack of trust in his word, or a lack of belief in the sufficiency of his work, then of course, like that's where my unbelief is exposed. And the way to combat that has to be with the truth. And that's where the gospel has to get inside of us. And so we're going to make disciples, then the gospel has to be at the center point of that. Otherwise, what are we making disciples of? Or who are we making disciples into be? If it's not the gospel, then it definitely isn't Jesus, because Jesus is at the center of the gospel. And so that's why the gospel and disciple making go hand in hand. You don't have them separate. They are absolutely together. And that gives another reason why I'm excited for this time in October, for some of the things that we're talking about here to be fleshed out.
Yeah.
But I need to be encouraged in the gospel.
Yeah, it's good, man. Let's get specific. We're talking about the gospel. We're talking about the workshop. Give the folks listening some flavor of what's going to be walked through. What are some of the emphases that we've got a variety of pastors participating in this, again, to the point of it really stretching across our entire church. So what are they going to be experiencing Friday night and then Saturday from about 9 to 4?
Yeah, as you said, we got 5 of our own pastors teaching the different sessions and breakouts for the weekend, and we're going to see a theme here in the topics. But the first one is the gospel. If we're going to make disciples, we need to have a plain understanding of what the gospel is, and so that's the first place. And so Friday night is going to be a session on the gospel, and again, interactive discussion around tables after that, and then gospel fluency. What does it mean to actually understand the gospel, where it's coming out of us as a fluent language? And so that we are speaking the same language when we are ministering to everyone within our church. And then, so that's Friday night. And then Saturday from 9 to 4, so pretty much the whole day. We're going to have a couple other sessions. The gospel in me, along with the gospel with us as a church. And so first of all, how is it in me? And then how is it flashed out? What does it look like to be demonstrated together as a church? Right smack in the middle of that, we'll have a break for lunch. And also Pastor Ben is going to lead us in a time of scripture-led prayer and worship. Kind of what we're calling like a sailor moment in the middle of the whole weekend, pausing and reflecting on who God is and what He is doing on that weekend, as well as being able to look forward to the rest of the time on the Saturday, and just have a moment to pause. And that's going to be a strategic time and also purposeful that I'm looking forward to how He's gonna use that time. And then after that, we're actually in between both of those, in the morning and afternoon, we have 2 different breakouts, one on gospel-centered leadership and gospel-centered care. And then wrapping up the whole weekend by talking about the gospel and disciple making and how those two do go hand in hand together.
That's a full weekend.
It's good stuff, though.
Yeah.
Well worth your time.
Yeah. Appreciate
the simplicity, the clarity, and there's really an urgency in it as well. We got to get on this, your time here on earth is short. As has been said, hell is hot. And there's work to be done. And so let's spend the remaining moments of our lives that we don't know what those are, but the Lord does, and the Lord has appointed that day for us. And until that day, let it be everyone's greatest pursuit as believers, especially at Doxa Church, to say, how can I invest in knowing the gospel more, that the gospel might be known through me more, that more people, might come to faith in Jesus and grow to be an effective worker, laborer in the harvest.
Yeah. Amen.
So practical details here, Stu. How are folks getting connected? Maybe, who is it for? We've kind of addressed that, but let's be really clear on that. And then how do folks get connected to this?
Yeah, again, if you're a leader currently in a Doxa ministry, you would have gotten email already, like an invite within your emails, and check your inbox. If you did not, you can reach out to your ministry lead. But if you're someone that aspires to leadership at Doxa, or in a process of becoming a leader, or just wants to know more about how we actually accomplish and fulfill and work on our mission, then this is the kind of weekend that you want to attend. And so either person can find the registration on our app or on the website, can go to one or the other. But again, maybe a point of reference is if you are a leader already, then that invite, and that's an important link for you, is in your inbox. And so definitely check that out. And then a general registration is open up on our app and on our website.
And it's free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you say that already?
No, I did not.
Okay.
That's a great point. It is free.
We are trying to make it as possible as possible for you to go.
That's right.
Not have a barrier in there like needing to pay for this. We're glad to shoulder as much as we're able church-wise. This is a very worthy investment of a church's resources to make sure we can do this for our people, and they don't need to do anything extra by way of pay. So it's great that we're able to do that. I'm very, very thankful. We've already described the schedule. It's Friday evening. Call it 5:45 or 6 p.m. And then it's going to go till 8:30, and then Saturday doors will open around 8:30, but then 9 to 4 with a nice long lunch break in the middle of that as well. Any last words, whether on the practicals or on the motivational side, to get to this workshop?
No, I just want to be able to express my excitement. I think hopefully that's coming across here in this moment, and there's been a lot of time and effort and thought that has gone into this, and we do it for God's glory, and hoping that that we grow up into Christ. I've done a lot of reading in Ephesians recently, and just thinking through of that. This is for my own maturity as well. Like, as obviously this is for everyone collectively, but I'm just thinking about how I'm going to mature in this time, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited for what God is going to do in and through us as a church during that time, and what it means for the fruit of this, for not just like in the months to come, but the years to come. Of what God and how He's going to use it. I'm just very thrilled to be a part of a church that desires this kind of ministry, and to be able to do it alongside one another. I'm very thankful for the leaders that desire this as well, and so I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah. Great, man. Me too. Would encourage you to sign up if you're listening to this. Would encourage you to think through someone you might share this episode with. I know this will be a shock, but not everyone listens to Doxologic.
Wait, what?
I know. I just, not everyone listens. So listen, if you are a regular listener, or just decided to check this one out, share this with someone who you think should be a leader, who's got the maturity to be a leader, but isn't stepping into that capacity. And I'm not only talking about small groups, that is going to be predominant, but absolutely any kind of leadership in our church. This will be a formative time. And so I really want to encourage you to share this as well, and encourage more and more folks to sign up. We got a lot of room, not unlimited room though. It is possible that this fills up, given how many leaders we've already got coming. And so it encourage you to get registered soon on the app or on the website. And Stu, thank you, man. You've done a lot of work to get us to this point. There's still a lot of work between now and the actual event, but I know that the work's being done well, and it's really neat to see the shared leadership and the shared load among so many pastors of our church who are excited and jumping into this. So glad we could do this together. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time.
You've been listening to Doxologic, a podcast by Doxa Church in Rockland, California. To learn more, visit doxachurch.net.